Dawn, welcome.
Thanks for having me again on the show, Mike.
Yeah, again, I hardly need to introduce you, but there will be people who haven't seen you yet. So for those who don't know her, Dawn Mahan, like me, left a successful career as a senior project manager to found her own training business, PMO Training, where she leads a team of experts in the art and the science of getting results to help her clients to accomplish more with their internal talent. We have a lot in common, as we've discovered time after time working together online. But now, since we last recorded an interview together, Dawn has written and published her first book. Congratulations, Dawn.
Thank you. It was quite the project.
Yeah, and it's called Meet the Players in Projectland, and she's kindly sent me a copy, which is fantastic. And it's about the project roles in Projectland. And for that, it seems to me that this book stands out. It's the first book I've seen which really focuses on looking at the project management process and the tasks we have to do through the different roles and the people that you need. It's a marvelous book. I recommend it to new project managers because it tells you how you tackle projects in a pragmatic way, but also to experienced project managers because it looks at project management through a new and unique lens. So, Dawn, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for the beautiful, kind words there on my first book. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I did say first, deliberately. Let's start at the beginning. Where is Projectland? Because I checked in my World Atlas and I can't find it.
Right.
So where is it? And why is it a bit like a jungle?
Yeah. So Projectland is the word I use to explain to people, especially people who are new to the project world, that projects are different than business as usual operations, maintenance, whatever it is that the business does on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. And so Projectland is really a way to describe the idea that the world of projects is truly different. Yeah. And it's like a jungle because if the word project, according to the Project Management Institute, the definition includes that it's unique. Yeah. And unique means in the history of the world, nobody has ever done this thing before in this time, in this place with these people. Something makes it unique, right? So to me, it's like a jungle. Yeah. And in fact, so you mentioned, we both used to have real jobs. Yeah. And so when I had a real job, I won the President's Award one year. And they offer you a trip. And so I chose to go on a yoga retreat in Costa Rica. Lovely. Right. And I love Costa Rica. I've been there many times since, but that was my first time there. And one of the excursion days, what you could choose, which I did, was to go into the rainforest and do zip lining. Right. So I'm a little adventurous, but I like safety a lot. And I do value my life. And so we're standing outside the rainforest in the parking lot. And the guide, who certainly I had never met before, but who was local and a experienced guide, gave us the safety briefing, all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And then we started trekking through this jungle, this rainforest. And I thought, this is probably exactly what team members feel when there's a project manager who may or may not have the experience level. You may or may not know them very well, and we're all sort of trudging through this rainforest wondering, are we going to get out of here alive? So I feel like it's a lot like that with projects, which is why in the book I have this welcome to the jungle idea, because really understanding the emotional side of what people are going through when you're trying to lead them through this place that nobody has been to before and through before can be really daunting for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it's full of wild animals. And what I really loved about it, and I think it makes it a little whimsical without losing its seriousness. And I think you've got that balance absolutely spot on, because I get really fed up with people trying to be funny or whimsical for the sake of it. But I think you get the balance right. But you introduce the different roles people play and the different ways that they play their roles by the metaphor of different animals and the characteristics of the different animals. And you've made some pretty wise choices, I think, in the animals you've chosen, because they kind of conjure up the right pictures in my mind from my experience. So can you introduce us to some of the main players in Projectland and give a brief introduction to the characters that we'll find in this jungle?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for that, because I agree with you. I'm not a cutesy person, but I found that people are very sensitive today. And so talking about people and emotions and characteristics and all that stuff is not very comfortable for people. Yeah. So in training, I started to introduce these animals just to make it easier for people to have these conversations about how people operate when they're under stress. And let's be honest, when you're trudging through the jungle, you're going to feel a little stress, right? No matter how experienced you are, Projectland is stressful. Yeah. So at the top of the food chain is the lion. And so the lion is the king or queen of the jungle, and therefore also depicts our executive sponsor role on the project. So that top executive who's accountable for the project. And the reason I chose the lion there was because I have seen, and I'll bet you have too, where the executive sponsor roars, like it's like, hey man, the status is yellow and we need you to do something about it. And they're like, rah, and then whoop, all of a sudden the status is green. Yep. No matter what it is, it's going to be green because people are afraid of the lion. Yeah. So when we talk about the people side, it's like, listen, lions just roar. That's what they do. Right. So I tell sponsors in our sponsor school training that they need to be very cognizant of how they react to things, right? And how they operate. Because when the lion is calm, all the creatures can go about their business calmly and focus on the work and so forth. So,
which is, of course, literally true. That when the lion family has eaten and it's chilling out, actually, other animals will come pretty close with impunity because they can read the mood. And one of the skills I think for project managers is to learn to read the mood of your particular sponsor. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about the project manager next. Yep. So the project manager's animal avatar is the tiger. Not quite the king or queen of the jungle, but awfully close. So also a huge cat, also a big cat that we need big cat courage sometimes to really, address the lion in the right way, all that kind of stuff. And also, every time we do a project as a project manager, we earn a stripe. So it's like you have to earn your stripes, right? You have to earn your stripes here. And you do it every single time, you enter Projectland and you have another, you put another project under your belt. So that's one of them. Love it. So sometimes the sponsor and the project manager need additional executives to help. Yep. So for instance, big global projects, highly complex projects, even technical projects, with a lot of moving parts, that kind of thing. You might need, not always, but you might need a steering team to help the sponsor to be successful. So the lion obviously can't fly high, right? So you might need an eagle, you might need a whale, right? You might need an owl who can see at night. So one of the things I talk about in the book a lot is these traits. We talked about it with the lion, but these traits that people bring. So there's the skills and the position, but also there's the style, the leadership style. So one of the things I like to think about, and I thought obviously a lot about this in my own experience when I was writing the book, is who people are and what their style is. So for instance, there is this general counsel who is just a really wonderful leader and very thoughtful, and he is definitely an owl. Yeah. He gives us wise advice. He has a different way of thinking. It's almost like his whole head can spin around and see the whole picture, right? That whole 360-degree view. And he just gives really, really wise advice. So he was a steering team member a few times in my career. And I just always appreciated the style that he brought, let alone, the thinking, the wise thinking that he brought from his legal background. Yeah. That whole piece about the steering team, I thought was one of my favorite pieces because I think probably governance is a bit of a hobby horse. So you've introduced the owl. Can you tell us a bit more about the other members of your steering team?
Yeah, absolutely. So the eagle, that flies high, right, can fly high and everything. They also live up high. So these are the folks that really see that big picture, and they don't like to get into the details. And when they do, they swoop down and cause utter chaos, right? And then they swoop back up again. And so I had this leader in China once say, that's like executive management. And he was like, or you could like swoop down and cause utter chaos. And so, so we have to be careful about our eagles. And there's always these helpful and these sort of hurtful, not so helpful traits that happen. But it is really helpful for the lion if you have somebody that's an executive that can really have that big picture thinking, really zoom out and see that big picture, with you, lest you get too far into the weeds. And then the whale. So this one, so I was just telling you, when we were prepping, that my family is now in Hawaii, and I go every year. I make my pilgrimage to Hawaii every year.
It's hard life, but someone's got to do it.
Yeah. Somebody's got to do it. It is a really long trip, by the way. But
I can imagine.
Nobody feels bad for me. Which is fine. So
good few hours when all you can do is catch up on movies. It's terrible.
Yeah, that's right. And books, right?
And
I like to read a lot on the planes. But so my niece is her birthday is in January, and that's when the whales start to run. So every year now, it's a tradition. We go whale watching every year, and we were doing that as I was writing the book. And so I'm just, these creatures are so massive. Yeah, they're as big as the boat. And then, they also, at that time, the mother whales might have an adolescent whale, and nobody is going to get in the way of a mother whale with their adolescent whale. Nobody. Right. And so in Projectland, I like to talk about the whale side being, sometimes there's that business. And when I was in a global business, they had this, like, the biggest business unit run by a certain person. And that when that person was on the steering team, you got all the resources you needed. Right? Because who's going to mess with him? Nobody.
Just get things done.
So that was really, really helpful for the sponsor when he was standing next to them, and he was like, listen, we need this in my business. And then everybody was like, okay, how are we going to make it happen? He's like, I have the funding, we're going to do it. This is, anything you need. And he was wonderful. And so nobody's going to challenge a whale.
Excellent. And I told you this when I read the book. It struck me that in my experience, there's another steering team member that I'd like to propose you add into the second edition when it comes out, because I'm sure there will be a time. And this is, for me, is the hyena. And there are people who come onto a steering group not to be helpful, but for the glory. Really, they're scavenging for a bit of influence and a bit of reflected glory. The project manager and the eagle, the whale, the owl, and the lion, they all do their work, but the hyena just wants the pickings, so that they can live off it. But they're not prepared to put in the hard work of actually doing the research, doing the reading, thinking carefully. What do you think?
I agree. I mean, I have definitely seen that creature also. And I loved it, which is why I said, yes, let's talk about the hyena. So you also may have noticed in the book, I have evil creatures. So there's some personas of evil creatures. So I feel like your hyena is a close cousin to my winged Wally, who I imagine is a walrus, right?
Okay.
But, right, where winged Wally also, I mean, he's not really putting in the hard work here. He's not. But he might not be totally in it for the glory. He might just be lazy, right? Whereas the hyena, really, that depiction makes a lot of sense to me, because, there are quite a few people that operate. Sadly.
And whilst your owl might kind of pick something apart because they've spotted something, and the eagle might, with the right intention, pick it up. I think the hyena just wants to make their mark, really, don't they? I think this is a really important thing for project managers to learn how to spot and deal with effectively the dysfunctional kind of stakeholders they've got, because frankly, you can't get rid of them. They're there. They're part of the ecosystem. So that's really important.
Yeah, it has helped people to think about, I've been getting amazing feedback on the book, and part of it is because they haven't thought about the personalities really, right? You think about the position, you think about the skill set, but you don't think about the personalities as much, especially if you're like I've been, in IT and engineering and some of the more technical fields where you're more like this. It's about data and it's about getting stuff done, and it's a little less about the human side. And so this book is all about the people. I mean, because people are going to make or break your projects. And so really, I love what you said there, really thinking about, the personalities and how to manage them is important.
And one of the reasons why I like your metaphors is because you and I, we made a career out of communicating and teaching and training project management and associated disciplines. So in a sense, it's relatively easy for us to keep in mind the various different models of personality at work, like Merrill Reed or Belbin or all this, and they've all got their different strengths and weaknesses. But the fact is they are confusing and hard to keep in mind if you encounter them on a training course and then you're back at work 2 weeks later and you can't list all 4 or all 7 or all 8, however many there are in whatever model your trainers. But the animals, it just sticks because we know the characteristics of the animals that you're using because we've grown up with them. And I think that's the genius of it. It isn't just a kind of tricksy thing to make a book, in my mind. It is a way of it's a really good educational structure because it taps into people's existing knowledge and helps them to make connections.
Wonderful. Thank you for that.
So the last section of your book is about getting the project started in the right way, which again, super important because if you don't get it started right, you're never going to finish it right. And it's about getting each of the players on board and lined up. And you have some really good advice about recruiting your team, which I think is worth sharing with our audience. So can you give some of your favorite tips for bringing the animals onto the ark? Oh,
absolutely. So, the first thing is I think you have to start with the leadership team.
Right.
So if you don't start with the leadership team and you don't get the leadership team on board, then there's no use in, running around trying to find team members.
Yeah.
Right. Because you don't have the support. And we know, and I talk about in the beginning of the book, that one of the key reasons for failure is a lack of proper management support. So tip number 1 is start with the leadership team. Yeah. So if you're a project manager and project's been dropped on your plate, one of the things you need to think about is, okay, who is the right sponsor? Yeah. It may be very clear, it may not be clear, but really think about that. And then think about, because they may not realize that they need a steering team or don't need a steering team. Sometimes they think they want one and they don't really need one. So your advice as a project manager on, do you need a steering team or not? Let's really think about this. And then helping the sponsor to recruit them in the right way. If you do need a steering team is really key to success. And then everything is easier if you have the right leadership team in place that can, like I talked about the whale, that can make sure that you get the resources you need, clear the path and so forth. So first start with the leadership team.
So one of the questions I get a lot in training is, what if I can't find anyone who will sponsor my project? Which I've got an answer to that, but I'd be interested to hear what your answer is to that. What do you do if you can't find a sponsor?
Yeah, my question is, well, then is it worth doing?
Yeah.
And usually the answer is no. Yeah. Then it might be worth doing, but not right now. Right? It might be not the right time. Yeah. It might be never the right time. You might not be in the right organization for it. But if you're looking around and there's nobody interested in this, then you have to really take a hard look at, is it the right time? Is it really worth it? Why is that? And then, you might just want to put it aside for a while.
Yeah. And a lot of people, they say, well, I'm told I've got to do the project, but I can't get a sponsor. So which I say, well, if you can't get a sponsor, don't do the project. And I said, but I've been told I have to. Huh? But if nobody's going to sponsor it, then nobody cares enough who is it that told you to do it? If they won't sponsor it, then they're not going to fight for it. So
Agreed.
yeah, I think you're spot on there.
Yeah, because lack of management support is a reason for failure. Don't set
Yeah.
yourself up for failure with that lack of management support at the onset, for sure.
And of course, yeah, if you don't have a sponsor, you've got no real governance structures either. So you've got no top cover from your point of view, and the organization's got no oversight. So you've got your team, you've got your leadership team now, you set yourself up. What's the next tip?
So the next tip is in thinking about the skills you need to get it started, right? So it might not be the ultimate, the full team forever, but it might be the team leads. So if you're a project manager and this project is a little bit more complex than you can manage on your own, maybe you need some insights into certain parts of the organization that you're not as aware of, that your skill set isn't in. We aren't meant to know everything, even though we know a lot. Then who are the team leads that can help you at least set it up for success, define it in the right way in the beginning and so forth. And with the team, I have animal avatars for the team members too.
Okay, let's hear some.
All right, cool. And the team leads are just the alpha animals in that same grouping. So as you're thinking about, just like I said about, the leadership team, as you're thinking about who you need, don't just be thinking about the skills, be thinking about who is a good team player.
Yeah.
Right. And so if we follow Hollywood or sports, about some of these prima donnas that are out there that aren't good team players.
Yeah. And they actually set the team back.
Yeah, absolutely. They do set the team back with all the drama and whatever and the me. We want good team players. So that's really the first thing that I look for. I'll take a good team player over somebody that's a superstar every time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the team player, I'm looking for that. And then I'm also looking for not only the skills, but also the characteristics in the same way for the leadership team. So the Gazelle helps us go fast. So it turns out in my research that the cheetah, everybody thinks the cheetah is the fastest, but the cheetah is only the fastest after they get momentum.
Yeah.
It turns out that the Gazelle can outrun a cheetah because they can dodge and weave.
Yeah.
And boy, do we know in Projectland that you have to be able to dodge and weave as things, happen. So I look for, if you have one of these projects where the executive team feels the need for speed, right, to quote a movie, then you need a Gazelle, like who can really help you go fast, right?
Yeah. And also the thing about Gazelles is they've got more stamina than cheetah. We've all met the cheetah who is fast off the line, but then, gets excited for the first couple of weeks of the project, and then they run out of steam. You don't want them on your team. They're no use.
That's a great point. Great point. So the second one is the Bison. And the Bison, it turns out, has a lot of special skills too. So if you can only choose a few team members, then you definitely want a Bison, because the Bison is agile. It can actually jump up and down, spin around.
Well,
the
I'd like to see that.
Obviously, did you know that?
I did not.
Yeah, I learned a lot in research.
I should be hitting YouTube after this call.
So the Bison it can jump up and down, spin around, and also it's the only creature that will go toward a storm, will go through, because they know that if you go through the storm, you deal with it faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. So isn't it great if you're a project manager, if you have somebody on your side like a Bison who isn't afraid to go through the storm, isn't afraid, can also run fast, can be agile, can do all the things. And the Bison just also reminds us to really focus on people's strengths.
Yeah.
So we're because they're strong. And so we really want to make sure that we bring people together for their strengths on projects.
Yeah, not necessarily flashy and charismatic, but just gets the job done. Nice.
Yeah, you want those solid team members like the Bison. Yeah. And then the third animal avatar for the team members is the Dolphin. So I'm in Florida, and there nearby is the Dolphin Research Center, which is just a really wonderful place. And so I've learned a lot about the Dolphins by being a member there. And it turns out that they love to play. So they like to have fun. And it isn't nice when you have a team member who likes to have fun and get stuff done too. Yep. And also they have their own communication mechanisms. So they can speak, right? Their own language. So I always think about, especially on some of these big projects that are really making huge change, that change manager, that communicator, that person that really cares about the people side, that wants to make sure that the people are prepared for the change your project brings, and even likes to have a little fun while doing it. Yeah. So Dolphin is a great team member to have when you really need to amp up your communication game.
Yeah. The last thing I want to ask you about, you have a phrase in there which I think is marvelous, and I think it tells us a lot about good team leadership in a project context, and it's your injunction to love the creatures you're with. So what does that phrase mean to you, and why did you choose to kind of really highlight it in the book?
Yeah, so I have been given team members and told, these are your team members. And right, that happens all the time, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what I decided is, okay, this might be the team of misfit toys. Yeah. Right? This might be the team I wouldn't have chosen, but this is the team I have. Yeah. So instead of fighting it, I'm going to embrace this. Yeah. I'm going to take them through the teaming process. I'm going to lift them up. I'm going to love them up. I'm going to give them everything they can to succeed, and they're going to know I have their backs. So because what other choice do you have? So don't fight it. Yeah. You can't change them. So. Yeah. And I've always used the phrase, you get the team you deserve, which is exactly what you said. If you get that team of misfits and you treat them like a team of misfits and you prepare yourself to blame them for the project failure, you will end up with a team of misfits. But if you get a team of misfits and you invest your time and effort into them, and you give them all the support and guidance and confidence in them and trust, then they will become a good team, and you will have deserved it. And so I really love that. I love that you put that too. And that reminds me of all these movies. Yeah. There are tons of movies. Yeah, it's a great trope. where this is exactly how it goes. Yeah. And where, they come together for Mission Impossible and they make it happen because somebody believed in them. And one of the things that I say in the book about the steering team, and I love it that you said steering team and not committee, for example, is that, words matter. So one of the tactics you can use too is to call them subject matter experts, your team members. Yeah. And when somebody did that to me early in my career, I was like, "Wait, what are you talking to me?" Yeah, because I don't feel like a subject matter expert. And then I saw that in many of my team members over the years. But I realized, that when you say to them, "Listen, we're in Projectland." Right? This is the first time in the history of the world you are the one team member that is focused on this. Therefore, over the course of the project, you will become the subject matter expert in the company on this thing. Yeah. And then they're like, oh, wow. And then they step up to it. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. People live up to your expectations or down to your expectations. The lower your expectations, the deeper they'll go. The higher expectations, the higher they'll rise. Again, it's one of the reasons I've always enjoyed talking with you. It's one of the reasons why this is such a good book. So, Dawn, thank you for all of this. How can people get a copy? How can they engage with you online and get in touch with you? Well, thank you so much again for having me on the show. It's always a pleasure, Mike. And if anybody wants a free sample copy for your audience, all you have to do is go to ProjectGuru, GURU press.com/sample, and you can get a free sample copy of the book so you can try before you buy if you like. If you would like to just go get the book, then it's pretty much available everywhere. So go ahead and check out ProjectGuruPress.com to see where it's available, but it's pretty much available. Yeah, everywhere. I'll put a link in the description. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, an ebook and in paperback form. And I've been told I need to do an audiobook. So
yes. And reading itself?
yeah, that's what I asked my insider group. I said, okay, guys, I've got a couple pieces of feedback that says I should do an audiobook. Somebody wants an audiobook. Like, what do you think? They were like, yeah, you have to do an audiobook. I'm like, do I have to read it myself? They said, yeah, you have to read it yourself. I was like, okay,
great.
Here we go. Another project.
Yeah. So to find your inner lion, tiger, flamingo, everything.
Yes. Yeah, we're going to harness the whole zoo.
Excellent. And how can people get in touch with you?
Please link in with me. Get me on LinkedIn. I'm /Dawn Mahan on LinkedIn. And so please let me know that you heard our show today. And if you liked it, I'd love to hear that. If you hated it, I'd love to hear that too. I love feedback. So please definitely, connect with me on LinkedIn. And or Instagram, where I'm Dawn J Mahan, and I share some more little fun stuff, on the personal side too. So happy to connect.
Excellent. Dawn, it's been a great delight once again to speak with you and to welcome this book to my bookshelf. So Dawn, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mike. Always a pleasure.
Please do give us a thumbs up if you like this video. I'll be creating loads more great project management content. So please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of it. And I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.